What, by golly, do we have here? I actually don't know. You all know before me because you read the title. Scan that QR code for whatever this is. And look at this. You attach these to your rig to simulate moving forward. Okay, that's kind of a interesting grill design. And these are the cables to connect it to your control box. This is just like a really big PC fan connected to sort of a turbine housing that 3D Wrap has 3D printed. These are adjustable here, so you can adjust the angle. I have not been the type of person that wind simulation has ever been appealing to, so this video might change my perspective on that. The biggest thing I could see is helping with is probably VR users, people that are sensitive to not feeling any kind of real movement or motion. You know, if you have a static rig and you're into VR racing, I could see this being really beneficial. But me, I've never really been interested in this. I didn't request this. They asked me, hey, would you be interested? I'm like, well, sure. Of course, I'll review anything. But it's not something I reached out to them and said like, hey, can you send me this? Let's go ahead and slap these on the rig and see what they're like. I will say, it looks awesome. Yeah, the system's very easy to adjust. They're pretty well on there. This is a full motion rig, so we'll see how much these bounce around. But here's one thing I didn't take into account. When I play in here during the summertime, this is the garage. It is hot as hell in here. So having some fans built into my rig, count me in. I didn't even think about that, but why not have some fans to help gauge your speed and help keep you cool? I guess for open wheeled stuff too, like where you're exposed to the elements, I could see that being kind of a benefit too, to feeling some wind. Let's go ahead and add a feature. Shake it wind. There you go. Okay, so we can set up idle wind and speed-based wind. I mean, idle wind's gonna be great for the summertime. Whoa! Those are pretty powerful. Okay. They are kind of loud. Let's see if it detects 1% power. So 1% power doesn't do anything. Let's see when it turns on. 3% power doesn't do anything. Okay, so for my particular units, 7% power is the absolute lowest it can be. Speed-based power range. So I'm gonna say 7% to 100% because 7% is the lowest. Maximum car speed, we're gonna leave it to automatic because it says automatically adjusted based on actual max speed. It has cockpit mode, it says cockpit ventilation mode, apply wind power range minimum as soon as engine or ignition are on. Otherwise keep the fan off as long as you're not moving. So this would be helpful in BeamNG to be able to determine if your car is actually on or off, or your accessories are on or off. Let's see, speed correction, use fan speed correction curve. I'm not gonna mess with that. Drafting effect. I'm assuming this is like, so when you're behind a car, you can feel it differently. Oh, left to right wind curving. That's cool. Okay, let's try it out in WC24, I guess it's called now. Maybe 25? I don't know what they're calling it these days. I see a big 24 in the background, but it's 2025. I don't know. So I have it set up to where it's idling at the very lowest RPM, and then as soon as we start moving, the game will determine what my top speed is, and then that'll be max output. And these are pretty powerful at 100%. It kind of just feels like fans hitting me. Like, I'm not really associating the feeling of the fans with movement just yet. But in VR, I could see this being helpful, like I said. Yeah, this will be really nice for summertime. I'm not saying some people can't find use in these for what they're intended for, to kind of feel a sense of speed, you know, a sense of movement, but I'm not feeling it. Maybe I'll be able to sort of feel it more if my motion is off. Okay, my motion's off now. I mean, no, even without motion, it just kind of feels like there's just wind hitting me. I'm not really able to feel like wind coming out more on one side when I'm turning. You know what this might be good for? If we could figure out a setting to make it to where you can only feel it when you're aggressively turning, maybe it'll feel good for people that drift. I turned on the speed correction for the speed-based wind here, and you can see I applied this sort of a more gradual curve, so it's more noticeable now when you're going fast. So you really feel like you're topping out when the fan speed is at 100%. I have it set up for manual now instead of automatic, because the slower cars, I want them to feel slower. Let's say the fastest car that I drive in any game is like an open-wheeled car. You know, like an F1 car, something like that. That's my peak performing car, right? So there's no car that will go faster than that one car. So all the other cars that are slower than that car, I want them to feel slower. So I get that extra excitement factor when I do drive those faster cars, those F1 cars or whatever drag racing cars or whatever you choose as your fastest speed. And the fan curve that I applied here is to further embrace that. So when I'm going slower, I'm going to notice the fans a lot less. And then when I'm like topping out, I will feel those fans at 100%. So there's no question I am literally going to the maximum of this particular vehicle. Fan profiles are feeling a lot better, feeling a lot more natural. I'm going to say, unless you are in sort of an environment that you are constantly hot, or you're extremely sensitive to VR and you need to feel some kind of sensation on your body and on your face, that these are not really something that I would consider, unless you're like in a convertible or something like that, where it kind of makes sense to feel the air. But when you're in a sealed vehicle, you're not really feeling wind as you travel faster. But my personal situation, you know, when it's summertime here, the garage is very hot. My sweat just drenches the seat I'm in. You know, all my clothes are just soaking wet by the time I'm done. This is a good, aesthetically pleasing way to attach air conditioners for your rig, you know, that are kind of racing themed. I could see this being pretty awesome for flight simulators, you know, for old school aircraft, you know, things like that, or open wheeled cars. Just nothing that I personally partake in very frequently. I don't do any kind of flight simulation. I don't really race in convertible cars. I don't really do open wheel racing very often. I'm gonna say that this is a pass for most people. I don't think this is worth it for most people, especially if you're sim racing in your home where you have air conditioning. But for anyone that's into VR, it can be very helpful for VR sickness. For anyone that's trying to replicate older vehicles or any kind of flight simulation, or you're like me in a garage where it gets really hot during the summer. Anyway, that's that. Have a good day. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.